Welcome back to Shifting Overthinking to Marketing Movement, a limited audio series for creative, equity-led solopreneurs with a story and expertise to share. This gets you out of your own head to find clarity and direction so you can build sustainable marketing processes that fit your body, brain, and capacity. Heads up, everybody. I had a lot to say about this particular subject, so this was probably going to be a longer one, and if it's long enough, I'm probably going to cut it into two parts, so just heads up on that. Intellectually, if you are a business owner, you know that you need sales to keep afloat. But this is often where all the anxiety and fear can bubble up and prevent us from sharing how to work with us, much less making an ask directly to people who seem interested. It's partially because we've all experienced when people do this wrong. I have started avoiding LinkedIn altogether because how often my just inbox would blow up for people who had scraped my data, sending me pitches without knowing literally anything about my business. Like literally asking a solopreneur if they need phone service. Like, did you even try to figure anything out about me? Or sometimes what can feel even worse is the folks in your DMs asking you questions like they're genuinely trying to build a connection with you when instead they're just trying to find an in to sell you. Or even more blatantly just audacious is the folks that use your own inquiry forms to try to book a call with you so that they can sell to you. Come the hell on. Like what is going on? It's all gross, and you are right to be turned off by that. But just because that's what some people are teaching, that is not what sales has to be. That is what capitalist patriarchy has taught us. It had to be if we want to be successful. Push, aggressive, get the yes at any costs. The Glengarry, Glen Ross, ABC, that is not working anymore anyways. So I don't know what is going on with that. But anyway. Just like with everything we've been talking about in this series, you have to find your way to do this. That's how you go through your sales process with confidence and out of an irresistible desire to share your offer with folks for their benefit, not yours. So it is not a revolutionary act to say, hey, offer as much value as possible. But I want to go a bit further and define this because I feel like that's also been warped to the point of being manipulative. Like there are folks that are like, get people to say yes and have micro conversions so that they feel they get used to saying yes to you. Like that's manipulative. Like I don't mean that. So what does value mean? I found out recently that there is a whole subfield in philosophy that's called axiology that discusses what value means and discusses this concept, which it kind of makes sense. It's also really weird because value is such a subjective term. However you choose to define it, and we'll get there in a few moments, this is what the bad actors don't realize. They are trying to extract. Specifically, they're trying to extract from something that is not there. They are operating from a sense of entitlement to our time, our attention, and our money. And that is why they get left on red or blocked. Inside of entitlement, we want to earn that time and attention from the people who we're trying to reach with our message. And the way that I approach this is that we earn that time and attention by offering support and encouragement when they're going through a hard time, giving them a new way of thinking about or approaching their problem, help them getting a quick win that builds momentum toward their desired result, keeping them aware of new and developing news in your subject matter of expertise, and analyzing the context and why it's relevant for them. And also, just as valid, building connection by showing the person behind their business so that folks can gauge whether there's a fit based on like vibes and shared values. I'm sure you could probably think of a few more, but for the purposes of sales, there's two that I want to focus on with this. One often precipitates the other, in my mind. Getting someone to consider a new perspective to what they're struggling with, and then momentum toward their desired result. When I was a tech consultant and nurse, and I was on the fast path to burnout, I knew I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, but I didn't know what that would look like. I went through a certification program from the National Society of Health Coaches. Well, I don't have that credential anymore. I let it expire. I learned a model that I still carry forward in marketing and sales now. The model is called the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. And yes, that sounds very wordy. You don't have to know all of the details, but it's pretty simple in that it says, hey, people do not make changes in their lives based on an external person telling them they should. We need to connect what internally important to us and discover our own motivation. And as a coach or as a healthcare professional, we need to be helping them figure out that motivation for themselves to make the changes, instead of just being like, you should stop smoking. Like that's never stopped anybody. And I feel like this is in some ways the purpose of marketing. I have a content series about like adapting this model to marketing that I'll release at some point. So it's mostly completed. I wrote it. I just never recorded it or scheduled it. So if you downloaded my companion resource, you'll be on the email list. So you'll be notified because I do have some extra content on that. And in sales, it's kind of the same way. There's not an external person saying, convincing somebody that they should act now on what is bothering them. They should already have an awareness of that. They should already know, hey, I really want to work on this thing. And they should be ready to take action. In the sales process, we should be identifying those who are ready to take the next step and giving them the information they need to make the right decision for themselves. Which brings me to my concept of flagship content. We already talked a little bit about this in the last episode of the content ecosystem. I was talking about focusing on framework building content first, but your flagship content, is that framework that is comprehensive and intentionally structured to provide a smaller result that naturally leads to the larger transformation that your paid work provides. The issue here is we often see what others are doing and think we need to do something as elaborate or resource intensive, but it's really up to us. I've seen folks do like a free revenue calculator. I see people have success with like weekly coffee chats and create community that way. What matters is that it's substantial enough that people have either real actionable takeaways and they have a strong sense of what your approach, your method, and your unique teaching or coaching style. It's the free trial of the software, or it's like the test drive of the car. When you have something that is a larger investment, you need some sort of smaller buy-in way to try it. The main decision is, because again, this is such an easy place to overthink, is okay, so I need to have this. What is it? Should it be a summit? Should it be this? Should it be that? The main decision before you think of any of those things, as you decide what that flagship content will be, is whether it's going to be something that is like time bound or if it's evergreen. And this is often going to depend on what the offer itself is and your capacity. For the timed component, workshops, summits, 5-day challenges, a lot of the things that we're used to seeing, they lend themselves well to having a call to action that is also time sensitive, like a group cohort where everyone is starting at the same time. Sometimes they can be fairly easy to set up, like a workshop. You just plug it into Zoom and send out the invite. But then you often have to do a lot of promotion to fill it, and you have to make sure people show up. And so there is, I think, almost a little more capacity component there. Evergreen flagship content is, I think, a much better suited choice for us low capacity folks who don't have predictable capacity to host something that is like a monthly workshop or monthly work hours. It can be, a lot to set up at first. But once it's done, all you have to do is like polish and optimize and like promote it like every so often when you have spoons. Examples of evergreen flagship content are like a private podcast or audio series, cough, cough, you're listening to one, like a video series, an email course. It could be like a community space on School or Discord, among like there's other choices there, a quiz, a book. If you are like a designer or you're more of a done for you, it could be like an asset collection. Think like Canva templates or stock photos. It could be like a free course. It could be like an app or a template. All of these things, again, will help people see what your approach is, what your aesthetic is, what your style is, what your teaching style is like, without having to commit to showing up in person or like at least synchronously with everybody else. So for this action step, it's going to be twofold. First, we're going to plan what will make for good flagship content, like what the subject should be or the topic would be. Think about your offers and the transformation they provide in your clients' lives, their businesses, their relationships, or their finances. If you're struggling with this, I have a couple of questions that will help you kind of get to this, right? What's the first thing that you work on together before everything else? This can even be part of what is your onboarding questionnaire? That can also be a place to go look and see, what can help with good flagship content. What insight or perspective helps folks shift out of the surface level thinking that they were in into understanding the root cause to the issue that they're struggling with? And then also looking through your client, work. Do you have a resource, a workshop, or a template that you use with clients that could potentially stand alone on its own and again have a smaller result? Then, as you're figuring this out, notate whether you plan to do a time-sensitive or evergreen flagship content. Either way, mark it down in your calendar, start telling folks or shout it out in the Story Spark Lounge. We'll give you definitely a bunch of encouragement as you work towards that. Definitely, if you're going to put it in your calendar, give yourself a 4 to 6 week buffer if you're needing to create brand new content. That's why I say if you have something at least close to it that you've already created, definitely try to start with that as the starting point. But people forget. You'll often, still need to create a landing page for it, maybe follow-up emails. Maybe there's some other logistics. So this is a place that is very easy to overcommit. So please don't beat yourself up, and this is why this is coming out piece by piece, because this is something I still need to be told, because this is kind of what I did to myself with this audio series in some ways.